Thank you very much for coming, attending this event. And I'll immediately continue with the Blue Devils and Duke University. And I want to tell them hello, because yesterday I received email. They were asking me if they can send a photographer here to take a photo. And they will be following this speech, so I'm here. And thank you, Diamond, for organizing this wonderful opportunity for me and for my colleagues who came from Georgia to share with you some opinions, concerns, views, and to try once again to understand better what's going on, not only in Georgia, not only in Ukraine, not only in the region, but in the world, because this problem already has reached the scale which concerns probably everybody around the world. We, Georgians, are lucky to be in the middle of everything. And we are experiencing all the problems and issues Damon was referring in our country and in our neighborhood. Therefore, I'll try to talk not about Georgia only and not about Ukraine only. And it is impossible to talk about these two things separately, because main issues, both in security dimension and in the economy, and I would add democracy dimension in these countries, are so interconnected, and we have same challenges and same opportunities probably. As you know, one of the largest opportunity which emerged for us, for Georgians, for Ukrainians, was the Eastern Partnership initiative of European Union, which on one hand was successfully completed because we have signed those agreements. But unfortunately, our friends in Ukraine did that with the cost with what they are paying now. And it's not only them who are paying for that. And we all remember that the crisis there started because of this issue. And I want to underline here, it was about signing agreements of partnership with the European Union. It was not about NATO, it was not about military, it was not about tanks or I don't know, rockets and so on. It was about just free trade. It was about the orientation of the people, where they want to belong to, which part of the world. And even this appeared not to be acceptable for President Putin and his team. So I'm stressing on that once again in order to underline the miscalculations probably many of us had before when we are thinking about the future of Russia and where Russia was and where it was going from that point where it was. I visited Atlantic Council last time 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, and I had this kind of conversation, and I remember when talking about threat which was coming from Russia, and we were complaining, Georgians, that unfortunately the world has forgotten what happened in August 2008. Because by that time, when I was delivering speech here, the life with Russia was going on the same level as it was in August 1st, 2008. Meaning, what happened and which generated a lot of criticism from world leaders, it's disappeared. And by the time I was making that speech, almost nothing was left other than non-recognition policy of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which by the way always was there because Abkhazians and South Ossetians declared their independence 25 years ago. And that was not a new thing that the West would not recognize their independence. So unfortunately, these miscalculations where Russia was going and how strong their imperialistic ambitions were, it was not taken seriously. And what makes me to say this, what I said? On the example of Georgia, I believe there were some missed opportunities to make this country a more integral part of Western defense, security, economic alliance. I believe European Union was too slow to realize that Eastern Europe was an essential part for European security and well-being as well. Therefore, this debate whether Europe ends on the eastern coast of Black Sea or western coast of Black Sea and geography and so on, it unfortunately took too much time. Probably same thing happened with NATO enlargement when Georgia was doing its best to satisfy all the standards and demands NATO has for its membership. And sometimes we were doing probably even more than it was necessary. We had huge issues in the side of democracy, but I believe we did our best in that direction as well. I'm not saying that we have solved all the problems or it is perfect there, but whatever was possible in a small post-Soviet society, which is under constant pressure from all possible sides, yes, we were moving forward and we were making progress, but unfortunately, again, it was not enough, our performance. There were other reasons why this process was not going fast enough. I believe at the moment it's essential to talk about the lessons and about the future. What we can do better in order to solve this crisis and to make sure that that solution is long-lasting and it's sustainable. And in this regard, we in Georgia are posting questions to ourselves, and probably these are relevant questions to everybody as well. One set of questions are about the current crisis, how to deal with it. And then second set of questions are what we should expect after this crisis is over. I mean, how the region, how Russia, how the neighborhood will continue. Because we are not talking about a country, about a state, where one leader or one government may did something wrong, and it could be replaced, which is happening in all the countries, and the policies were wrong, and then the other people would come and correct it, and so on and so on. That's not the case. When thinking and talking about current Russia, we talk about very specific power system, which functions in this reality, and we don't know how it would function in different reality, or would it function at all or not. So these are the questions which bothers us as well, because in case the aggression is stopped, we have one set of issues, and we need to develop strategy for that. And in case this is not happening anytime soon, how we continue. And in this regard, these short-term and long-term strategies or actions are very conditional, because for Georgia, we do not have long-term luxury or to thinking about long-term, because everything is very short-term. Everything could be changed so quickly. Everything could be so uncertain. While things are happening in Ukraine, and while politicians, journalists, international organizations are occupied by these issues, and rightly occupied, Russia continues its move towards Georgia, because it happened during the last 6 months when they concluded new so-called treaties with Abkhazia and South Ossetia. And these treaties are called integration of those independent states and Russia. And integration means that Russia takes effective control over almost everything in those territories. Not only military, but education, pensions, monetary issues, and then everything else. So I want to say from this place that the only thing which prevents Russia to declare Abkhazia and South Ossetia as parts of its territory, as they did with Crimea, is Abkhazian people who want something else. They are not ready to become part of Russia. And therefore, it's not the case when they could conduct some referendums and then people would say that, yes, we want to be part of Russia. And in order to prevent complications in Abkhazia, Russia is not declaring South Ossetia as part of Russia as well. So that's the only reason why now on the maps printed in Moscow, these territories are not having the same color as Russia. And we should not be mistaken in thinking that there is something else, respect to, I don't know, non-recognition policy of Western countries or strength of Georgia or possible consequences and so on and so on. No, it's just this kind of very isolated thing which prevents them to do that. Therefore, it is happening. They are doing everything else but declaring these territories as part of Russia. We are of course concerned about possible complications in our region, because the military presence of Russia, not only in Southern Caucasus but in Georgia, is growing, because those Abkhazian and South Ossetian territories, they are out of control of any international organization. I want to remind you that the monitoring mission of the European Union, which is the only instrument on the place, on the ground, which monitors the occupation lines, de facto borders between those enclaves and Georgia, they are not allowed on the other side of the occupation line. So we do not know what's going on there. And we all know much better what's going on Russian territory because, well, because of international treaties and so on, representatives of OSCE and others at least can travel in those territories of Russia. But these two, they are completely closed. And then that's of course quite dangerous setting of military forces. We Georgians try to not to panic, I would say, and we try to to be focused on many other things we need to do. It's economy, it's social issues, it's democratic institutions. We have quite some achievements in this direction. Media is much more free than it used to be. Political freedoms are observed much better than it was before. Business community is much more free than it was before. We conducted at least 2 national elections, which were regarded as a huge step forward, really, not because of this phrase, which is frequently used in the reports. We have first time probably in our history of independent Georgia really functional parliament, and parliament is functional when it is noisy, and we have very noisy parliament. While we are sitting here right now, our colleagues are debating a lot of issues. It's first time when Georgia has a coalition majority in the parliament, which means that the majority is quite colorful. We have several parties in the coalition. Therefore, we are slower than our predecessors were. But we don't think that the speed is the most important thing. We believe most important thing is to make decisions based on the consensus, and discussions are conducted. We have first time in the parliament very strong opposition. They have about 1/3 of the seats. Georgian parliament has different history. Previous ones had about 10% of seats reserved for the opposition, and the opposition was represented by 6 or 7 parties, and in best case scenario, one party had 3 representatives, others 2 and 1. So this was the kind of camouflage for democracy. In current situation, we really have a strong opposition. That's not only in the parliament, but in local councils as well. And there's quite heated debates. Of course, we need to develop better culture of multi-party democracy, because we are not forgetting that we are still post-Soviet society. No matter how loudly sometimes leaders declare that we are already there, we are already kind of beacons or whatever of democracy and we can teach others. No, the life is going much with different rules, and we need to go through some process until our society will be really based on some fundamental values of democracy, when nobody is claiming monopoly on the truth, when the presumption of innocence is really observed, and it's not only just nice word, and the very first, as things comes to real life, then it is forgotten. We are having very interesting process of making judiciary independent, and this is happening because of number of factors there. And right now, Parliament is going to elect chairperson of the Supreme Court, who was nominated by the President after a very open and lively process of selection. And it's also first time when President is not part of the ruling political team. And President, according to the Constitution and according to the real status, has a very different role. He is not head of the executive branch, he is head of the state with very important functions. And all these new things, of course, sometimes it's difficult to digest for the people, and sometimes people become a little bit nervous. It's easier when you have one director of the country, and you know that, well, he is the one who makes all the decisions, and you know where to go if you want to solve something. We conducted very interesting local elections, and the first time in our history we elected directly mayors of municipalities, cities and municipalities. About 73 of them were elected. And until recently we had a very interesting situation. Whenever the debate was about such things, whether to elect mayors of the cities and municipalities by direct elections, the answer was that, well, people are not ready for that. People may make mistakes. And it was only the president and presidential elections where we believed that people will never make mistakes. But on the mayor's level, they may make mistakes. So we made huge progress in that, and we said that, well, yeah, people, first of all, have the right to elect their own governors and mayors. So this was a huge step forward in direction of decentralization, because, well, the system we had was super centralized, and we know that super centralization can deliver certain positive things as well, and it did deliver some positive things, some fast reforms in certain areas. But when you conduct the sustainability check, well, not everything is right. Therefore, this process must be continued. I'm talking about these issues now because of 2 reasons. First, of course, to tell you that we are busy with some other things as well, other than coming here in this country, the city, and urging your support on security issues and other things. We are trying to do our homework as good as possible. We are using in our work the available advice and technical support from many countries, and first of all from the US. We are continuing reforms in healthcare system. We are doing a lot of things in the agriculture, which was left without attention, unfortunately, for many years. We are trying to do more in educational system. We are trying to use better the projects based on the Millennium Challenge Corporation initiatives in educational field, and there are some very interesting ideas to tie Georgian and US universities a number of areas which would increase, of course, our capacity. We are trying to be peacemakers in the region, if you want, because in the region, you know, you can hardly find 3 countries who all talk to each other. We talk to everybody, even with Russia. We have established the position of special representative of the Prime Minister in order to have this channel of communication in the when the diplomatic contacts are interrupted. So we try to find some ways of communication with the Abkhazian and Ossetian people who live on those territories. And sometimes we're doing good things without much advertisement in this direction. But all of this, if you ask me, how long it could last, I would say I don't know. Because it does not depend on our performance. So please understand me correctly. We have to do our best on all this direction. And we are trying, and we are open for suggestions, recommendations, or anything. But our message is that even if we are just completely successful, even if we are doing everything just on the level of excellence, it's not enough to make sure that these things are sustainable, the country could survive, we will not find ourselves in another turmoil, and so on and so on. Therefore, the security umbrella to our country and to our region should be provided and should be designed in a better manner than it was before. I'm not saying that it is possible in the next 2 days, but if we meet again here after 5 years and we will just analyze the situation, okay, we will see that Ukrainian people won their battle, they are independent, they are strong, and so on, so on, so on. Okay, and then what's happening? Should we wait another 15 years where another Putin emerges in Moscow and ruins everything in the neighborhood? Or should we do something more long-lasting, more sustainable, which will be beneficial not only for those countries who are in immediate neighborhood of Russia, but for Russia itself as well? In that regard, I believe what the strategy of the future should be based on, or one of the foundations of the strategy, is the strongest possible belt of democratic nations, countries around Russia. One of my colleagues reminded me that Russians would be annoyed after hearing this word belt, no matter we are talking about nuclear weapons belt or democracy belt. But I want to make it clear that I'm talking about belt of democratic countries and not belt of tanks and arms and so on. However, sometimes, unfortunately, that component is necessary for defense purpose, not for offensive maneuvering. But if we leave in the future, instead of making these countries strong democracies, and they will remain the so-called gray area when you don't know what is there, like when 2 countries have the border and then there's neutral zone. Yeah, it's kind of okay. It's nobody's, but it makes sure that the others across the border feel secure and so on. In this case, this concept doesn't work. We increase the presence of democracy around Russia, and in Russia we can solve these problems in long run. any other attempts and any other thinking that probably it is enough, and I know many citizens may think like that. Well, it is enough. Poland and Baltic states are in NATO and some others, and it's already too much, and it is costly and so on. We are not educating anybody. We are not in the position to give some advices to our American friends or others, but at the same time, we feel responsibility to express ourselves on these issues and to tell that, well, the resources which we are saved during last few years, saved because of downgrading, I don't know, presence of US Army in Europe, or not doing one more project, important project in Georgia or in Ukraine. Well, probably now we all need 10 times more resources in order to overcome the problems which are partly result of these savings or some reluctance to go forward and so on. And last thing I want to say, it's about the vision of the world in 21st century. We speak about globalization a lot, but it seems to me that we need to realize this process much better. And what I mean is that we wanted it or not, humanity or our predecessors or founders of this country or kings of Georgia in some ancient centuries, it was planned or it was not planned, we don't know. But we found ourselves in this situation when we cannot say that it's not my problem. I mean, we sitting in Georgia cannot think that problems which are not yet solved in South America is not my problem. Because in current world, these unsolved problems are coming to our homes on one way or another. I am not talking about a situation in south from Georgia, which is, by the way, closer to Georgian borders than Ukraine, and what is going on in Syria and in Iraq and so on, and all these processes which, yeah, it arrived in our homes. Some Georgian citizens are there as well as citizens of the US and others and others. So there are things which cannot be considered anymore as a problem of the others. And in such situation, when we have such unique settings, when the small Georgia from southern Caucasus is telling to big United States in Northern America that we are ready for strategic partnership. We are ready to be much more useful to each other. This is our decision. It's not our emotional something that please help. No, it's our well-thought decision that we are ready for that. I believe our American friends in the future will find more ways to strengthen this strategic partnership, strengthen on the level of not only security, not only on the level of democracy, but in terms of economic development as well, in terms of increased trade, increased presence. I know there's very promising processes going on in the US Congress and administration. We may see quite important decisions for Georgia as well. But my last message would be, please be more responsive to such readiness of small countries over the world, not only about Georgia, when we are ready. Because during last 200 years, we probably wanted that, but we were not ready. We were part of bigger empire. So until we are still able to express our free will and be ready, let's use this opportunity. This will be good for the US, this will be for Georgia, and for everybody around Georgia, because we want to bring there peace, stability, democracy, respect to everybody, dignity of minorities, and everything just positive. So let's not to lose any more time. Thank you.